Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by CJ Vogel. It's time for rapid reactions. Longhorns move to 4-0. Going to probably maintain their number one ranking later today. This is the Rapid Reaction Show. Adam Lowy, our sponsor over at the Lowy Law Firm. CJ, you were in the press box last night. The Longhorns, it was a very interesting evening. Arch Manning's debut. Jaden Blue kind of eclipses him somewhat and has a 4-touchdown performance, his finest as a Longhorn. The Longhorn defense, again, dominant for the 4th consecutive game. It's getting to be a habit. Now, are they playing good defenses? We don't know yet. But let me just start and throw it to you. You also were there at the post-game press conference. What were your thoughts and what you heard and what you saw on Saturday night?
Well, overall, I mean, big picture wise, Texas still played a Division I football team, and they won 51-3, right? They did so with their backup quarterback. So first off, they accomplished the task that was at hand, and they did so in a way that still presents a lot of ways for them to improve, which to me is, in grand scheme of things, with the SEC play, looming next week, that's very important. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for them to rewatch the tape and improve. And I think, again, you talked to Anthony Hill, you talked to Kelvin Banks, and you heard a little bit about it from Steve Sarkisian. These 4 games were really a huge opportunity for Texas to play a lot of players, a lot of young players, a lot of guys taking that next step in their collegiate career as well to becoming full-time contributors, and to also get an idea of what the team will be this year from a maturity standpoint, from a talent standpoint. You've allowed 2 touchdowns in 4 games. That's pretty darn good. Again, a lot to improve upon, starting it with Arch Manning, I think. But overall, 51-3. Have to be pleased with it.
I agree with you. It's a backup quarterback. Now he's got the Manning name, which makes it a little bit different. And there were some things that were left to be desired, so to speak, from him. But at the same time, 51-3. And I would add this. Rod Babers mentions this in the post game last night as well. You talked about there's still room to improve. Rod talks about the availability of a bigger ceiling, a higher ceiling still left on this team for a number of different reasons, whether that's defense, offense, special teams right now. Not everything is going in lockstep, yet they're still winning by 48 points on a team that's 2-0.
Right.
It's kind of nuts, right? This is one of the words I like to use is high cotton. Your sayings I like to use because these are first world problems. They're not the problems of a team that's going to finish 7-5 or try to make a bowl game 6-6 like we were dealing with 5 years ago.
Bobby, I mean, you win by 47, 48, 49, whatever it was. The math isn't quite working for me right now, but I don't think it was an A grade. And again, you almost win by 50 points. You allow 2.2 yards per play defensively. I thought the defense was great. But again, there's just a number of ways that they can improve. Penalties was one. Pressure on the quarterback on both sides of the ball is another. And obviously, the turnovers for Arch needs to be cleaned up moving forward. But again, that's encouraging, especially when you start looking around the country at, hey, Notre Dame lost at home to Northern Illinois. A&M, it was a close game against Bowling Green. There are teams that make winning look very difficult. And right now, Texas is not in that category.
No, they're not. That's a great point. That is a legitimately great point. You can nitpick all you want, but when you win by 48, what is there really to nitpick?
Exactly.
Especially when they're playing so many players so early. All right, we're going to get into some of the stats and whatnot behind the game that I think will be interesting to folks. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. It really helps us out here, guys, and makes this a lot of what we do possible behind the scenes. Adam and his firm, the Lowy Law Firm, have been helping injured Texans for 2 decades right now over in Austin, but around the state they go as well. Visit them at loweylawfirm.com. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, Adam's who you want to call. All right, let's talk the offense and do a little rapid reactions there. CJ, first of all, 497 total yards for the Longhorns. I don't know that it was hyper dominant, but other than some turnovers and maybe two poor series to start not to start the third quarter, but the two middle series of the third quarter. Texas looked a little weak, but otherwise, look, they were moving the ball through the air. They were moving the ball on the ground. Overall, I thought the offense had a good night last night, but something left to be desired at times. Look at the stats right there. Arch Manning, 15 of 29 for 258 and 2 touchdowns. Jaden Blue with 25 carries for 125 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 1 through the air. It was a smorgasbord of receivers. Of the 15 catches on the night, they went to 11 different receivers of Arch Manning's doing. So there was no singular receiver. It was a group effort there, but 497 total yards. What were your thoughts on the offense?
At first, when I checked the post-game numbers last night, Bobby, I thought 125 yards for Jaden Blue. It was a quiet 125, if you could put it like that, right? And I think that's more a testament to the offensive line and Blue being able to kind of rack up those 5 to 8 yard gains so consistently throughout the night. You know, he had that one run for 20 yards, but other than that, it didn't feel like that run game, the explosivity was there in the run game. But you look down and all of a sudden 100 yards has been surpassed, and you're sitting there saying, oh, this was actually a pretty good day on the ground. So that consistency was there, and it was pretty evident in my eyes for the Longhorns in blue. Welcome back to the offense with 4 touchdowns. How about that? I actually, it just kind of clicked in my brain right there. Only Silas Bolden had 3 or more receptions. That's distributing the ball everywhere, right? You mentioned 11 different guys were able to haul in a catch. Again, we've talked about it, and I don't know if it's overblown. I don't know if it was enough of a conversation even, but Arch's rapport with that second group of wide receivers, we saw him go to Ryan Wingo several times down the field. It felt like he wanted to get the ball to Jonte Cook at times too. It helps. And of course, when the guys that you're more comfortable with aren't necessarily your quote unquote top end number 1 guys, that means that you're going to have a lot of success when it comes to rotating guys in and out of the offense. And I think this stat line on the receiving core right here kind of speaks to the overall depth of this Texas wide receiver room with 11 different guys hauling in a pass.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think of the offensive line last night, CJ? Tony Hills in our postgame called it a little leaky at times. I think that's a fair assessment. But also, I mean, look, 497 yards of total offense. They had a 66-yard touchdown drive, or at least a 66 yards, non-penalty yards of a drive, of which Jaden Blue rushed for 63 of them. Jarrett Gibson finished off with a final 3-yard run. My point being for you, CJ, is yes, the offensive line may have been leaky at times on Saturday night, but it still was a dominant performance overall. I mean, just the way it is, we can, again, it's one of those things you can sit there and harp on negatives, but overall, the Longhorns playing pretty good brand of ball, and that includes the offensive line, even though they weren't perfect.
Yeah. I think the one thing, ULM, they're 2-0 coming in. I don't know where the rest of their season, what direction they'll head, but Texas has more talent. That's not to be disputed. The one thing I think that we knew coming into this game that ULM was going to test Texas on was their pass rush, right? 40 pressures over the first 2 games. They could get after the quarterback. They can make life difficult behind the line of scrimmage. And I thought early on that front 7 for ULM was playing pretty good football, Bobby. I thought that they were pressuring Arch. Obviously, the first turnover, the first interception there, I thought, as a result of some pressure, maybe Arch not having the internal clock for quarterbacks, as we talk about there, but they were making life pretty difficult. There was a sack in there. There were some tackles for loss. I think there was only about 3, but my point is they are a talented front. And again, I think Pullen is an NFL caliber edge rusher. We didn't hear his name all too much. And again, I think that's just because that offensive line is very talented, to your point. But yeah, again, going back to the theme from earlier, a lot of different ways for this team to continue to improve, and that's blocking down the field. I thought Texas had more clear running lanes for those 8 to 10 to 12-yard gains via the ground than we've seen in this entire season for the most part. That's a step in the right direction. We still want to see the home run plays on the ground, but right now we're entering closer and closer and closer to seeing them. Overall, pass pro, it was solid. It wasn't perfect. To your point, plenty of different ways Texas can continue to improve. And also, you got to see a lot of Cole Hudson again. And I think that's very important when you talk about the depth of this team and how many snaps he's getting, because you're one injury away from having to throw him in and rearrange what that starting five might look like. And you never know when that might happen. And right now, Texas has a ton of luxury when it comes to depth on that offensive line. That's been, a cornerstone of kind of the building of this team right now.
Yeah, it really is. I think that I think the Texas offense, and I immediately think big plays on Saturday night. Outside of it being a Jaden Blue night, I thought it was a big play night, whether it was the long pass to Isaiah Bond, long pass to Matthew Golden, long pass that I thought was complete to Silas Bolden, long pass to Ryan Wingo. I mean, these weren't 10-yard outs. They were 30, 45 yards down the field. And Arch got maybe, and Sark maybe got a little happy with that in some regards, right? I mean, they really went after the deep ball on Saturday night, more so than they have in, I don't know.
Ever?
Maybe. Felt like ever, but maybe since Casey Thompson went up against Texas Tech a couple years back. It just felt different, and I don't know if that was by design or if that's just where Arch wanted to go with his first game and go deeper into his progressions.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm juggling right now, because I do think Arch, has more accuracy down the field, on those 30, 40, 50-yard passes than Quinn. I think that's just part of who he is as a passer. I do think Sark got a little greedy at times, and we've seen the average distance of target for Quinn Ewers decrease year in and year out. Really, from the Texas quarterback perspective as a whole, it's decreased since Sarkisian arrived. And I think, again, he kind of had that, this is the offense. It's going to succeed because I'm calling it. We have the plays in place. The players just got to execute. And it hasn't been that case, right? Coming off the Alabama stint there, when you had 4 first-round wide receivers, it was easy. Those guys were making plays. You had NFL quarterbacks. And now we've seen, it's getting back to that right now, I think. And with Arch, I wanted to point this out because I did go back at some point during that third quarter and find the numbers. Passes attempted beyond 20 yards down the field. There were about 10 of them. Quinn Ewers has never attempted 10 passes beyond 20 yards in his entire career at Texas. And I went through the PFF numbers. I went through the box scores.
In a single game.
In a single game, yes.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you look at the completion percentage and, by design, it's tougher to complete passes down the field. That's just how it is. But also, I think there's a lot of learning in there, too. I was starting to question, Bobby, and I mentioned it in the postgame live stream last night. When quarterbacks get panicked or when there's, kind of the clock running out and they got to get the ball out, what do they like to do? For Quinn Ewers, we know it's find the running back, find the tight end, distribute the ball down below to check it down and let them work it up the field, right? That's what he does. He does that very well. For Arch, it kind of felt like it's, I got someone streaking down the field. Let's see if we can create a big play. And I think that's just that inexperience, kind of that immaturity as the quarterback decision maker there. He got bit on it once early on. I don't know if that's something that's going to be habitual with him or it's something that Sark and Milwee will be able to coach out to say, hey, you had Gunnar Helm in the flat there. You have Jaden Blue out in the swing route. Just get it down to them and they'll create after the play. It's something Quinn Ewers has been tremendous at developing. But right now, again, it has a lot of explosive attempts, I'll put it at. It's exciting when it works, but when it doesn't and you kind of find those 2 real quick 3-and-outs against SEC opponents, that will bite you.
Yeah, and I would say this. The other thing that Quinn did or does is he feathers the ball to wide open receivers, particularly Jaden Blue twice on Saturday night.
Great point.
Those things would have been different results. I think Arch was still trying to fit that ball in tightly when he didn't need to. It was wide open. That's something that you will learn as a quarterback as you get, because Quinn did some of that when he was younger.
Oh yeah.
This is something that experience teaches you. Sometimes you don't have to be picture perfect. You just have to complete the pass and let the rest take care of itself. All right, let's go to defense real quick and talk about that because my reaction on this defense was man, they gave up a lot of yardage and a lot of time in the second quarter. But other than that, lights out. Really, really good defensive effort in the first, third, and fourth quarters. They did not give an inch. Louisiana Monroe finished, CJ, with just 111 total yards of offense on the night. They were not able to do anything in the air at all. They did get some runs in that second quarter that we talked about, but that was against mostly backups for Texas. I just really, really impressed with this Texas defense.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to kind of dive into the elite category with this Texas defense. I think I'm there now, Bobby. Again, 2 touchdowns in 4 games, allowed 2.2 yards per play against ULM. Again, this is a team that was 2-0 coming in. It's not like they're a winless program or anything. And again, they have some talent there. With this Texas defense, again, they're doing it in so many different ways, but there's one constant theme, and it's playing sound assignment football, right? There's no busts in coverage. The communication's on point from complementary football up in the front to the back end. You don't see any passes completed to guys where they're running scot-free down the sideline or in an open space in the field. And you see the interception by Anthony Hill. Bobby, I thought it was a great showcase of individual defensive talent. And I say that because Anthony Hill was able to find that interception. Leon Lulafau with the safety and a sack. Jade Barron had a PBU in which he was blitzing from the corner position. Ethan Burke, Barron Sorrell, PBUs or pass deflections at the line of scrimmage. These guys, I mean, it's the individual play. Manny Muhammad, I don't know what his season numbers look like. I haven't seen a pass completed beyond 10 yards on him the entire year. He's been tremendous. And so it just goes on and on and on, the level of playmaking at different positions for this Texas defense. I'm all the way in. And the one guy that I think still has a lot of room to showcase who he is as a football player was Trey Moore, again. And if that's the case and Texas is still getting this amount of pressure on the quarterback, I'm all for it. Only one drive, really, as you mentioned, extended beyond what was a quick 3-and-out or a first down and a punt. And that was a 13-play, 58-yard drive that resulted in a field goal. If that's the case, I mean, hat tip to Johnny Nansen and PK, because that's a tremendous showing once again.
Yeah, I thought that those were the types of drives that drove Texas fans crazy.
Yes.
The 3 to 5 yard gains, and it would just run clock. And you know what? Texas adjusted. And I also think Texas also put Barron Sorrell back in the game. And Barron Sorrell had a really good night on Saturday night.
Yes.
David Benda had a good night. Lungionga Lafau with the big play safety. Then you had Javion Cole, the young man out of San Jose State, coming in and making his first interception. While I can't even believe they ran a flea flicker in the fourth quarter down by 48 points. I mean, save your ammunition for a game you're actually in, coach. Texas did not throw a pass in the fourth quarter, yet Louisiana Monroe decided that they needed to run a flea flicker with two minutes remaining. That blows my mind. My point, though, going back to this, you talked about some strong individual plays and the defense as a whole. The consistent high level of effort and execution and results for this Texas defense is unlike anything we've seen in quite some time at Texas.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it just is. They're being consistent. They're doing it consistently. They're doing it each and every game. And if they do start getting beat up on a situation or a way, the coaches have changed the defensive alignment and assessment and changed the way Texas is presenting. They did it really quickly on Saturday night, too. They didn't let it prolong. So I was really impressed with Texas overall on defense. Anthony Hill is just a superstar in the making. I don't think there's any doubt. You mentioned Manny Muhammad as well. David Benda had a really good night on Saturday night, too. Just a lot of good players. I want to go back on one more thing I want to mention in this rapid reaction. Thanks again for listening, guys. Is this, and I talked a little bit at post game. red zone. I mean, Texas was 7 for 7 on Saturday in the red zone for touchdowns, not just points, but touchdowns. That makes them 21 of 23 on the year in the red zone. That is with touchdowns. That is freaky good. That's not kind of good. That's like incredibly amazing. I mean, talk a little bit about what you saw in the red zone, CJ, in this rapid reaction, if you don't mind, because I think that was that's the difference between being up 12-3 or something at half and 28-0 or 28. It's such a big piece, and it's allowing Sark to blow these teams out as opposed to letting them linger and just hang around the rim.
Yeah, I think a year ago the question was, is it execution? Is it the offensive line? Is it play calling? What's the issue? Is it quarterback? I think you really saw an answer there, and it's the improved offensive line play for me, in my eyes. And that was really evident on a number of drives, more specifically that drive, Bobby, where it was Jaden Blue for 63 of the 66 yards. And, you saw later on Jarrett Gibson really comes in and starts pounding the rock in that red zone as well. That offensive line, it felt like Sarkisian was leaning on them, where maybe, you don't practice red zone with Arch as often as you do with Quinn, right? Maybe you don't have that rapport on the comeback or timing routes that we've seen already to Bond and Golden. That could be a factor in it. But the offensive line, to me, gets a gold star, a sticker on the helmet, if you will, for the way that they played and dominated. They pushed the pile in the red zone, and it's been a consistent theme so far. And that's been the number one big change that I've seen from a year ago, where the execution, the blocking schemes and duo, stretch zone, outside zone, whatever it might be, it wasn't executed well in the red zone a year ago. This year it has been, and it's paid off tremendously already.
All right, that's the CJ Vogel here. I want to ask you one last thing, CJ. Any other big takeaways from last night that you would say that people need to be thinking about here on Sunday morning?
Yeah, to me, it's Texas creating the negative plays without it being sacks, and I think that's.
So you're talking about on defense, really?
On defense, yes. That to me is the number one takeaway. Again, it feels like with Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Barron Sorrell, these guys would be racking up more sacks than they currently have through 4 games. I don't know if they've had the opportunity. Texas, the sacks will come when they get into SEC games and teams have to compete a little bit longer into games. But Texas is still creating 2 turnovers with Anthony Hill and Javion Cole. They're still having negative plays with the safety and ways to get off the field. And 2 of 12 on third downs, Bobby, it's pretty darn good.
After 2 of 17 last week.
I mean, that's all you can ask for. Third down efficiency, red zone efficiency. They've been 2 issues in the Sarkisian tenure. They're looking like mega strengths right now.
PK does a great job of that, by the way. I want to give him credit. I know Johnny Nanson's been added to the staff, and the versatility he's brought to the defense has been huge. But PK seems like every year he says, okay, we need to get better at this. And then he goes out. Last year it was 3rd down and 4th down.
Yep.
And, this year it's not only 3rd down that carries over, it's also better tackling. Now, for the first time this year, we did see some missed tackles on Saturday night, but they weren't, astronomical numbered. And they certainly were only on 1 drive, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it for Rapid Reactions for Sunday morning. We've got the offensive grades and defensive grades coming later today. Thanks also to our sponsor, Adam Lowy, the Lowy Law Firm. Adam and his firm have been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years. So if you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, reach out to Adam and his firm. Thank you so much, Adam, for your sponsorship of On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks to CJ Vogel, as well as our producer behind the scenes, Matt Hutchison. We will talk to you again later today. Thanks also to our friend, Adam Lowy. Hook 'em.